Hey everyone, today we cozy up with Tinamarie Clark. She is a model, author, and the founder of the Shift Stir method. We chat about how her early experiences shaped her and ultimately led her to found the Shift Stir method, and how this mindfulness practice helps women and people every single day become their best selves. Check it out. Well, thanks so much for being with us today. We're really excited to chat with you and learn more about your journey and the Shift Stir method.
Thank you for having me. I'm super pumped. I love the title of your podcast. Clear cut is, I like that my diamonds and my conversations just get cut to the chase. Clear cut answers.
Awesome. Well, I'm really curious, what is, you're the founder of the Shift Stir method. What is the Shift Stir method? I know it's a mindfulness practice, but can you tell us a little bit more about, what exactly it is and how, what was your journey like founding it and, creating it?
So the Shift Stir method is a 5-step method to shift your perception. And I created this method out of necessity, out of my inspiration came out of my desperation. I just felt like I was a hot mess in all areas of my life. My relationships were failing. My interactions with people were just awkward and defensive. And I just knew that there had to be another way to live because I couldn't cope. I felt like I was in a constant state of reactivity, always. Just, it could be, a FedEx driver giving me the wrong look and I was just stirring. So I knew I had to find a way to handle myself. And it was, as I was going through the journey, I was very quick to blame it on everyone else. But when I took a look at what was happening, I was the common denominator. And I started cultivating, and not even cultivating, but really experiencing different workshops and reading, different spiritual books. And at the end of that, I still do that, but in the interim, I really cultivated these 5 steps for myself that became the Shift Stir method, but really just were integrated into my day-to-day life to get me out of my own way and really allowed me to come back to center. And when I was stirring, meaning when I'm triggered and when I'm reactive and I want to go off and, write that nasty email, or when I was wanting to give an attitude, I really had to find a way to not do that. So I used these 5 steps, and then I eventually started sharing it with other people, and it worked for them. And I was excited about getting that out to the world, and it's helped, other people to manage, when they get knocked off course.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like that's something, especially, over the past year, I'm sure lots of people have been searching for, a mindfulness practice. I know I have, just because everything has been so out of control and, out of our grip, that we are searching for something to help ground us. Could you kind of walk us through the 5 steps of your method, and how someone could begin to practice this in their daily life?
Yes. So the 5 steps are stir, which is the first step. Stir, recognizing you've deviated into a negative thought pattern. So that's anytime you are in conversation or going about your day and all of a sudden your energy shifts, where you take offense to something or you're surprised by something and you have, fearful thoughts associated. That's a shift. When you shift into a negative thought pattern, that's when that's a stir. So the first step is recognizing you are stirring, you've deviated. Then there's the sit, which is sitting with your thoughts and emotions without offloading and trying to decrease by reacting the suffering that you're in. We often want to offload it by these default defenses that we normally use. And we normally use like 4 or 5 consistently. Like we'll, draw inward, or we'll be reactive and take a nasty tone, or we'll use be passive aggressive, or whatever it is we do to avoid feeling, we use these things. And that's our time. The sit is designed for us to sit within that desire, but not react in our default, what we normally do. Then there's the third step, which is the sift, which is sifting through and unpacking and unwinding the narrative of the stir. What did we tell ourselves that email, that lack of an email, what did that eye roll mean? What did it bring up within us? When we weren't invited to that party, what did we say that meant about ourselves? So it's really unpeeling our fear and really getting to the core of it, because it seems like it's coming up through this person, but it's really most often hitting on an injury that we've already had, a wound that we've already had. And it gets close to that through our self-narration, through the ego. And we sift through what our ego has made this stir mean. Then there is the share, which is the fourth step. And that's doing what we're doing right now, being in communion with other women and sharing our truth and owning our awful, owning what's really going on, not just the sweet, great sides of life, but owning the darker aspects and owning the things that we often deem or other people deem as awful, but that are actually just human. And that forges deeper connection with self and with others. And then the fifth step is the shift. That's the result. That's the byproduct of doing the 4 steps before it. You will shift your perception, and the shift can vary in magnitude, being large or small. You could have a complete revelation where you're like, oh my gosh, that had nothing to do with that person. Or you could just see it through a softer lens. And the shift stir method is designed to have you practice this way of processing things that stir you up.
And do you think that someone should be practicing this, or are people practicing this mindfulness, these mindfulness steps like daily, or a few times a day, or weekly, or what have you been seeing is the best consistency?
Anytime you're stirring. So it depends.
And the more you do it, the less you'll stir, probably.
It's really, it depends on the person. Like I said before, I never really came out of a stir. I felt like I was in a stir storm. I spent years inside of a stir storm. So everything I experienced from day to evening, I was experiencing it through the lens of somebody that was reactive and fearful at all times. So if it's for someone like me, then they would have to process multiple stirs, and they may even not even know when they're stirring. This is really for anyone that is brave enough to look, no matter if it's, okay, I stir once a day or I stir 5 times a week. It really is applicable to anyone that is experiencing emotional suffering.
Yes. Can you tell us more about the major shifts within your life and how those have helped to shape your identity?
Oh, yeah. Shape my identity. I would say that the major shift, or some of the major shifts I would have had to have made and have made, have been about not taking offense, not always making something about me. Like I said before, it was always someone else's fault. It was always, they made me feel. What you said made me feel this way. And when I started applying the method, I realized that no matter what someone said, even if it was heinous, even if someone called me a bad word or whatever it was really my responsibility and really my conditioning that would allow that pain to increase or decrease. My narrative that I have, or my identification with that name or that idea, was really something that existed within me. So I feel like once I started applying the method and working through the method, I was able to have a different vantage point for observing myself, because it became more about what was going on within me rather than what was going on no matter what the circumstance. And for me, a lot of the time, I would bend and manipulate my perception to either confirm or deny my self-worth. So if I was in a dinner meeting with someone, I would, my ego would, survey the situation to see if they were trying to insult me or if they liked me, or it was always looking for validating objects so I could feel better, or if it wasn't to my liking, I would feel worse. So I would say the biggest shift is having more discernment on who's generating that, if that's self-generated or if it's coming from the external. And I think that those were two big shifts for me.
And when in your life did you recognize this about yourself and realize that you needed to make like this internal change?
I would say that this is a hard question to answer, because I would say that I started learning this when I was 11. I started realizing that I was personalizing other people's stuff when I was 11.
Okay. So that's pretty early.
Yeah. Because I remember specifically we had these new cordless phones, and it was this white phone, and you could only get to a certain point in our backyard until the phone started cutting out. But I remember being on the phone with my mom talking about this and saying, like, wait, how is it possible when I don't get, invited to go roller skating on Friday night? How is that about me? They were just being mean, Mom. Like, how is that possible? Like, this is not about anyone else. This isn't about me. This is about, her name was Jessica. And I was like, this is about Jessica. She's just so mean. She's so mean. She's terrible. And I really, and that very well could have been true, but it was when I started realizing that that was the lens that I was putting over that situation, based upon my own fears and anxieties.
Yeah, you that's when you started like recognizing those tendencies in yourself, which I think, at that same age, I had similar tendencies, and it's hard to like understand how to deal with those types of emotions.
Oh, they're crushing. Especially, I think, to a girl. I think like we're getting our periods for the first time. We're like getting boobs. We're about to go into like, what is it, fifth or sixth grade, and you're changing. Plus, you're hormonal.
Life is confusing.
Oh, it's so confusing, and all you want to do is fit in. And I already didn't fit in, but the one person I did fit in did not invite me roller skating, and this was devastating.
Yeah, totally. And I feel like, you take those kind of feelings and insecurities kind of with you into adulthood. And it is important to find ways to cope with that internally and have a more positive mindset, or like see things with an alternative viewpoint.
Hey everyone, Olivia here. Hope you're enjoying our episode. Our Clear Cut collection features fine jewelry pieces inspired and designed with you in mind. Our collection is ever-changing, and each piece is handmade and made to order here in New York City. Don't forget to check it out and use the code COZY, C-O-Z-Y, for free shipping on any purchase.
So when did you decide to become an entrepreneur? Like, when did you decide to take this mindfulness practice and really create the Shift Stir method?
So I would say that this, interest has been in me from a very young age. I've always been a seeker, but I didn't necessarily think it would ever turn into a career, even though I knew that it lit me up. But I worked as a model since I was 15 years old, and then stopped when I was, I think it was like either 5 months pregnant with my youngest son. I have 2 boys. One is 2 and one is 5. And when I was pregnant with my son, Max, I thought maybe I would go back to modeling, but I eventually didn't. And the ache of wanting to do something of significance had really grown during that time, because I knew that my impact in the modeling world was limited in translating what I had from my inside out. I was only judged by my external. Even though I had great relationships, I wasn't able to really express what I really had. And I felt like I had this thing that when I did it, when I spoke about it, I would just feel like I was on fire. Like I just felt so good when I was doing it. So I knew I needed to go towards that and explore that, but I was afraid because I didn't know what to call it. Like, what do you call this? What do you call liking talking about the soul and what we do when we're afraid? Like, what do you call that? I knew I didn't want to be a life coach. I knew I didn't want to be a therapist. I knew I didn't want to do that, but I had seen predecessors. I love Marianne Williamson and Brene Brown and Pema Chodron and Elizabeth Lesser. So I knew that there was a way, but really my own insecurities were, you could have told me, like, me being an author was the equivalent to saying I would eventually become like an astrophysicist or an astronaut. It seemed so far off. It was just like, oh yeah, like that's not happening. But eventually, as I inched slowly towards, and I was working with a coach at the time, I still work with her, as I would dedicate more time to exploring what lit me up, it started to become clearer and clearer as to the specifics about what lit me up in this genre. So I started working with her, and then eventually I swear it sounds goofy, but I feel like the method just came down to me. Like it was like presented to me, and it came all 5 steps at one time. It was like, okay, what you are is you're a shifter. I didn't even know what that means. I'm like, what do you mean I'm a shifter? And I was like, okay, like you stir shifts. This is what you do for yourself. This is what you can do for others. This is what you can teach others. And that's when I started writing my book. And I just knew that my ego, like my desire to have this outweighed my ego's narrative, meaning the part of me that identified with, oh, you're not a writer. Like, and it's with all due respect, I can own my awful in saying that I am a terrible writer, but my method, and I know its application, is way more powerful than that self-doubt.
Yes.
So I knew that had to be birthed, and I had to give life to this thing that was dying to exist. And it was an ache if I didn't do it. And I think that a lot of people are walking around with that dull ache in their heart, where they know that they don't really know the specifics. They don't know what to call it. They may not know, but they know that they have this thing that lights them up, and they don't know what to do with it. And it feels, there's like a level of sadness that comes with knowing that you have something inside of you that has not, or you don't know will ever be expressed. So I am so thankful that I was able to, inch towards that and get there, because being on the other side of it and being with this modality and teaching women how to do this has been, besides my children, the most fulfilling thing I've ever done. It is so cool to watch women transform really deep, fearful thought forms, that they've been thinking for years, and transforming them and letting go of the narrative and catching their ego in its attempt to rob them of their truth and their joy. So that's what I've always, like, what else could I ask for? That is the best job in the world. So that's how it started.
Yeah, that's awesome. To kind of shift gears a little bit, we are, as you know, a jewelry company, and I have admired your beautiful jewelry and rings on Instagram. Can you just tell us a little bit about some of your favorite, most significant pieces and, why they're special to you?
I'm so glad you asked, because I talk about shifter method, which I love. And I did 2 podcasts before this. So I am so excited to switch gears just because I love jewelry. I don't know what it is that was like in me. Since I was like really, really small, like my brothers would go get the gumballs in the machine, and I would always get the rings in the machine. Like when you go to the grocery store, I always wanted like the obnoxious big ring. I've forever, since I was a little child. So I've always been conscious of jewelry in general and diamonds in particular. I love diamonds. I considered going to gemology school just to know deeply, but then I knew I didn't want to work in retail because I don't have the bandwidth for it in terms of like, I need my own schedule, Mm-hmm. So I did not explore that, but I really deeply explored that, going to auctions, going to Christie's, going to Sotheby's, looking at, when I would go to the museums and look at other people's jewelry. I was obsessed with Grace Kelly's diamond and Elizabeth Taylor's diamond, and I love different cuts and all of that. My jewelry love is serious, and what I love about it is the storytelling. I love vintage jewelry. I love buying vintage jewelry. I love thinking of the possibility of who wore this before and what was her story. What did she like? If she loved this necklace or this watch, like in particular watches, I love thinking of, okay, this got someone through, this watched someone have a baby, or watched someone, cry, or whatever. It has this like sentimental value. And whenever I would think of people getting engaged, and I would hear that they were not engaged, I would always put their engagement ring, and I called it like the ring graveyard, because I was like, where do all those like lost engagement rings go? There's got to be like, you hear over the years like, oh, they got engaged and then they broke up, or oh, they got a divorce. And I think of all of these diamonds that are just floating out there that exist but no longer have a finger. So it was like my ring graveyard, and I always thought of that, and I fantasized of like finding a ring on the side of the street. I just my love for jewelry is profound. My favorite pieces are, I would say I love my Serpenti gold Bulgari watch.
Love that.
Yeah, that's my favorite watch. I bought it for myself. I actually bought it after I made the shifter method.
Awesome.
For myself.
So it marked like a special event in your life,
exactly.
Which I love too.
Yes, I wanted that thing so bad, and I knew I had to buy it with my own money because, and Dave, my man, would have loved to have gotten it for me, but I knew that I needed to buy it for myself because I had created the method by myself. I had created all of it, and I needed it to marry that. I needed it to feel, because obviously we, men love to, not all men, but some men like to shower. You get an engagement ring, you get a tennis bracelet, you get a this, whatever. But there's something about it being your own piece that you made or that you bought at a certain time that feels really cool. That being said, David, if you're listening, I don't like to buy all of my jewelry. I like when men buy jewelry, but I did enjoy buying that watch myself.
Yeah, and I think, I've seen a lot of women, buy jewelry for themselves to like mark like promotions or raises or like big significant events in their life. And that just makes it, just ever like so much more special and meaningful. And that's what's so cool about jewelry too, is that there's a lot of significance and like emotional ties to these pieces that you can like have forever.
Forever. And it's yours. There is just something different. There's something very special. Like I love my engagement ring, and it marks the love, and it marks us, and it's everything. But there is something about when you buy something for yourself that marks a time and a feeling, and that has nothing to do with anyone else. It's not about anyone else but you and how you felt and what you were doing. And I'm sure I could feel that on an average Tuesday, but it is nice when it's around a significant time. And it was a bigger purchase for me at the time. I could have, my 15-year-old self imagining buying myself that watch, it was just like, it was so far off. But, even that milestone of, doing that and being able to was really cool for me as a woman, just as a businesswoman, as my own person, my own money. So I also, another piece that is really important to me is I have a black onyx and gold ring that my dad, he actually just passed away from COVID-19 last month.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
He gave me, thank you. He gave me on my 21st birthday, or like around that year, he gave me this gold and onyx ring that was his class ring. Like everyone else got these regular class rings, and he got this black onyx gold ring. And I following his passing, everybody was, we were going through like just the basic things. Like he actually kind of started my love for pinky rings, because he wore his mom's wedding band on his pinky finger. And I just thought it looked so like regal, and he's a guy, so it was kind of mafiosa. It was like really boss. Like people that wear pinky rings are bosses. I don't know. I don't care what anybody says, but for me, they're either like a girl with like, a signet ring she's just like multi-generational, like fabulousness, or you're like a mobster or an Italian, like, mafiosa guy. Like, and my dad is Italian. So, he was just like a boss. So I loved pinky rings.
Yeah. And that's so special. Like, and that's what is so cool about jewelry too. It has so much like storytelling and sentimental value. Now you can like wear a reminder of him every day, which is so unique and so special.
It is.
Well, this was awesome. I won't take up too much of your time, but I really appreciate you coming on and chatting with us about your journey, your method, and your jewelry. It was a real pleasure. And if you could tell everyone, where they can follow you, where they can, follow the method, all of that good stuff.
You got it. So you can follow me on Instagram at Tinamarie Clark, and you can find the Shift Stir Method book on Amazon. So it's the Shift Stir Method.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I hope you guys have a great day, and thank you for having me on.
It was such a pleasure getting to know Tinamarie and learning more about the Shift Stir method. If you guys are interested in her method, check out her book is available on Amazon, and you can follow her on Instagram at Tinamarie Clark. Just like Tinamarie's pinky ring, what piece of jewelry makes you guys feel like a boss?